Okay. Oh, good. Okay, guys. We're gonna start a new concept today. Stay with us, okay? Brock, turn around, please. Okay, this one's kind of weird, so I want you to stay with me, okay? Hey, what's -5 times -5?
25.
What? Because the new two negatives cancel, yeah? Okay, so what is 5 times -5? So if I'm dealing with square roots, right? Then I need the exact same number times itself twice, right? So is this the exact same number, the 5 and the -5? No, they're different. Which means if I square root the 25, I get 5, or I could get -5. But what if I square root -25? Can I get one exact same number? Not yet. That's what we're going to talk about today. We can actually square root negatives. Now, today I'm not going to show you how to do it on your calculator, but next time I'm going to show you how to do it on your graphing calculator. We'll actually do negative square roots for you, but only if I show you a special setting, which I'm not going to do yet. Okay? But for today, if you tried to type in a square root of a negative number, it would give you an error. Okay, Mayday, right? But again, next time I'm going to show you how your graphing calculator actually will let you do it. Today we're just going to work on doing it by hand. Okay. Oh, error. We already talked about that. And 5 or -5. Okay. We actually have a new type of number called an imaginary number. Now, a lot of the times I get my sassy students who are like, well, if it's imaginary, why do we have to do it? It's not imaginary. That's just what it's called. And it's called that because in like the 16 and 1700s, I actually Googled this one. Someone's like, well, where did it get its name? And I like the story because it's like salty, shady mathematicians. But in like the 1600s, the guy that was like really famous for working with numbers, he got to name the different types of number groups, and he called his numbers real numbers and somebody else's numbers imaginary, like to like be rude to the guy, right? So they do exist, okay? It's like when names have silent letters in it. You're right. They're there. Yeah, good. Real numbers are numbers that can be graphed. Graphable numbers. Imaginary numbers are numbers that can't be graphed. They're numbers, but I couldn't graph them on an XY coordinate plane. Okay? So sometimes in math, we have numbers that are kind of weird. And so instead of writing the number out, we give it a symbol. Can you guys think of the most common one of those numbers? Pi. Pi. 3.14 is pi, right? Okay, so we have a new one today. It's called I. I for imaginary. The square root of -1 is I. Now on the last page, the first thing I always wanted you to do is to split your number and your letter. But that's step 2 from now on. To split number and letter. And step 3 is to factor tree like normal. Okay. What? Yep. So my first step from now on is take out -1 if needed. So basically you're going to get rid of the I if my number is negative under my square root. Thank you. Okay, let's do a bunch of examples, as many as time will allow. Okay, step 1, take out the negative. So when I'm making my factor tree, I'm going to take out my negative first. -1 is done. But how can I split 4? Good. 2 and 2. So I have the square root of 2 squared, like we did on the last page, and the square root of -1. So 2i. Before we do another, a harder one, I want to do a couple more ones like this. What is the square root of 9? 3, right? So what do you think the square root of -9 is? Good job. Okay, let's do one more. What's the square root of 25? 5, good. So what's the square root of -25? Try again. 5i, very good. Because you're splitting the negative and the number. And the square root of -1 is I. Yeah, we're going to do that one right now. I know, but I have the whole class. I know. Okay, so 18, step 1. Take the -1 out. Gosh dang it. Okay, take out the -1. Yeah, so that -1 is going to be an I in our answer in the end. Now, step 2, split your number and your letter. Then you factor like normal. What's a number that goes into 108? 9 and 9 and 12. I'm going to write out the radical step, but again, as you guys are getting better at these, this radical step is the one I'd love if you could skip eventually, okay? So I've got the square root of 3 squared, the square root of 2 squared, square root of k squared, square root of k squared, square root of -1, and then my leftover. So that blue step is the one I'd love if you eventually can skip. So I end up with my group of 3s, right? My group of 2s, my group of k's, my I, and then my square root 3. So 6k squared I square root 3. Let's try and get through one more before the bell rings. Let's look at 9. So use our list. Okay, so I split my negative and my number. And then step 2, split my number and my letter. If it ends in 5, I know 5 goes into it. So I take my group. My negative and my leftover. So 5ni square root 5. And as you get better, you're going to be able to jump from the tree straight to this, and that would be great. You have to have work. Most people can't, and then it's hard for me to check. If you really understand it, then you can show work. Okay, what questions? Okay, guys, that's it. Homework is the page attached.